Yeah, here we are. Special Monday afternoon, early evening edition of Chatterbox Bengals. Live breaking news on this Monday. Trey Hendrickson officially agrees to a new contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. Not exactly what everyone was hoping for, I don't think so, but we'll get into all the details and much more. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome, Andrew. I think your first Chatterbox Bengals, at least with me. So,
Yep.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you and excited for this to be the topic of the first one. Look, a lot of us wanted, well, let's start here. A lot of people wanted the Bengals to just move on from Trey and trade him away. A lot of people wanted them to sign him to a 3-year deal. Felt like he had earned that much from the Bengals. Kind of similar to the thought of the Joey Votto contract with the Reds. He had earned it. Trey Hendrickson likely had earned a multi-year contract with the Bengals, but they couldn't agree to terms on that. And so ultimately what we get today, a new 1-year contract, which basically guarantees that Trey will be a Bengal in 2025 and then becomes a free agent after this season, gives him a $14 million raise up to about $30 million. And at this point gets him on the practice field and gets him ready for opening week. Andrew, your immediate thoughts on the Trey Hendrickson news this afternoon?
Thank God. I mean, it's about time. Like, whichever way you cut it, the team's better with Trey Hendrickson on the field, whether he's playing for the next 4 years or he's playing for one season. The fact that he's going to be out there week one, especially that, we've hit on it 1,000 times already, or you see it every day, just about the Bengals are horrible in the beginning of the year, the slow start thing, right? So him being out there just takes a little bit more of that edge off when it comes to getting through that slow start. And yeah, just a lot of relief that he's going to be on the field in week one and that he's actually going to have a couple weeks at least to get ready with the team here in practices and whatnot, because there's a lot, I think, the deadline for adding a player or something like that is coming up. So there was some speculation that he might not even get practices in and whatnot. So yeah, just a big time move today.
Yeah, obviously there's the whole conversation around the contract, and we'll get into that. And but at the end of the day, I think one of my main concerns around this whole conversation was that this was going to take until after week one, and then Trey was going to take some time to need to get ramped up, and he wasn't really going to be effective until week 3 or week 4. The Bengals sign him now on Monday, August 25th. They have basically a full 2 weeks before their season opener in Cleveland on September 7th for Trey to get his, we'll call, sea legs under him and be ready to wreak havoc on that Browns offense and Joe Flacco on the 7th. So here at the end of the day, Andrew, I think, what we know so far is that Trey is now signed or is signing a 1-year deal that will pay him in the $30 million per year for this year range.
Mm-hmm.
Many thought that this 3-year contract was going to extend up into the mid 30s, potentially up to $34 million a year in order to get Trey Hendrickson done. I don't know about you. It's intriguing to me that the number to get this done on a 1-year deal was only $30 million when everybody thought a 3-year deal was going to take 34. Do you think that people were overblowing this and maybe this could have got done for cheaper on a long-term deal than what ended up happening?
Yeah, I mean, if he was searching for 30 million a year, it seems like that's 30 million a year across the next 3 seasons seems like a reasonable rate that the Bengals would be willing to pay. If it was a 3-year, $90 million extension, if that's what he's asking for, then I'm not sure why you wouldn't sign off on that right away. I was a little bit surprised that 30 million was the number for him. But I think there is an element for him that's just, wanting to get back on the field. And maybe he was just willing to take less because he's a competitor. I mean, we've seen him when he's out there. So, yeah, I don't know if it was like, okay, I will take a little bit less just to get on the field one last time. Like maybe he knows, this is it for me. I'm through. I'm not doing another year with this Bengals front office. I'm out of here after this year, but I'm gonna give it one last ride, something like that. I don't know. But 30 million does seem a bit cheap, especially for just a 1-year deal.
Yeah, look, a lot of people are making a point to call out the fact that, one, obviously he will become a free agent after this year. But I haven't seen anything officially, and if you have, feel free to stop me, but I haven't seen anything officially around an agreement not to franchise tag him. So what this could eventually signal is a $30 million deal this year, which obviously is guaranteed. But if the Bengals then turn around and franchise tag him next year, at least looking at the salaries right now, that's still going to pay him $35+ million a year next year if the Bengals do decide to tag him in year 2, which would obviously also be a guaranteed contract. So what this really works out to be is a 1-year guaranteed contract with a team option for a second year at like $36 million, unless I find out that this is obviously an agreement that, hey, we're not going to tag you next year. But if there is no agreement there, and you have the opportunity to sign him for $30 million this year and then tag him next year for 36, you're talking about a 2-year average of $33 million anyway. Why wouldn't you just sign him to a 2-year guaranteed contract at $66 million? Like, isn't that the logical explanation?
Yeah, you would think. There's been trying times with the Bengals front office in general, and so there are some things that we'll never really understand, I think. But yeah, if it is like you said, that there is no agreement that they won't franchise tag him, which is very possible that there is an agreement in the contract, because from what I've heard, just what it seems like around Trey's camp, he does not want to be under a 1-year contract, and rightfully so. He's deserved. I personally believe he's deserved a 3-4 year contract. He's been leading the league in sacks for a couple of years now. And it's just, 2 years, $66 million would get it done. I'm not sure. Maybe the Bengals don't want to give him that money. I don't know. Maybe they want to see him play for another season. I mean, he's going into age 30 or 31, correct? And so, it's not like you're thinking that he's going to decline, but on the chance that he does, the Bengals just maybe don't want to shell out that money.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson will turn 31 during this season on December 5th. So, that was the big talking point throughout this entire offseason, and about whether or not the Bengals should re-sign him to a massive contract like we're seeing with many other edge defenders around the league. Obviously, TJ Watt gets his massive deal among many others. Myles Garrett got a massive deal. Max Crosby got a massive deal. So we're seeing multiple people across the league get these massive deals. The only one who signed a deal this year at that range, at that age, was Danielle Hunter. So, TJ Watt is also going to be turning 31 this year, though, and he signed a deal for 3 years, $123 million. So, it's interesting that the Bengals potentially view that as such a sticking point, while other teams like the Steelers and the Houston Texans aren't as concerned. Even Myles Garrett will turn 30 this year, and they signed him to a 4-year contract. So I don't know if I'm so sold on this age barrier being such a blocker for folks, but it certainly kind of took over the headlines. And for a front office who, got a lot of flack for the way they handled the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins extensions, and now obviously Trey Hendrickson extension or contract negotiation. There's a lot of details still to come out, but their handling of salary cap has been certainly knocked time and time again. And being creative with a multi-year contract is probably a lot easier than getting creative on a 1-year contract as it pertains to signing bonuses and spreading money out over the multiple years and how that impacts your salary cap. So for a team with $30+ million in salary cap this year, they just gave up 15 or so of it. So the question now turns to, okay, who's next? So if you've got $15 million left to spend, what free agents, what waiver wire claims can you go out and make to improve this team to get it even closer to being a Super Bowl contender? And obviously, over the next 24 hours or so, we'll monitor those waves from across the league. And as names pop up that make sense, we'll certainly take a look at that and see what we can do. But it is nonetheless, exciting to know that Trey is going to be a Bengal in 2025, but I can't help but being frustrated with the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was ridiculous, honestly. It was a saga, right? It went on, and for this to be the outcome seems a little disappointing. And I think Bengals fans should be excited that he's going to play this season. Like, I'm not trying to take away from that, but to be put through all of this and then just to come out with a 1-year contract, knowing that he's going to play is a huge relief, and that he's going to be going from week 1. But it just feels like there was a big missed opportunity to sign the only guy, really the only guy on that defensive side of the ball that is going to go out there and just be a playmaker. And when you don't have a lot of guys like that, it seems pretty important to lock down the only one that you do have.
Yeah. Obviously, you don't want to have a conversation about whether or not the reigning sack leader of the NFL is on your team again, despite the fact that he's under contract. And yet here we were spending the last 9 months, it felt like, talking about Trey Hendrickson, going on Pat McAfee, going on different media outlets. Not only just Trey, but, Duke Tobin was out there in the media. Joe Burrow was out there in the media. Trey himself was out in the media. It became one of the main talking points across the entire NFL this offseason was Trey Hendrickson and what he was going to be doing this season and beyond. And for a guy who's compiled 35 sacks over the last 2 years and led your team for the last 4, it just felt like a little bit of a smack in the face to him, I'm sure. And, for me personally, I can understand the frustration from his part. You put your heart and soul into something, and for a sport as gruesome as football, as many people in the chat are saying, you want that guarantee. You want to know that you and your family are going to be taken care of. And I know it's hard to sit here and be like, oh yeah, $18 million is such a terrible number to have to live off of. But if I came to you and said, hey, I'm going to pay you half of what you're worth, you're probably not going to take that job either. Right. So I can understand it. It was frustrating. But nonetheless, here we are. And he is in fact going to be a Bengal. And for those of you that just joined or are joining late, Reid Maus will be joining us here shortly as well. He's currently on the road. He'll be calling in from his phone as soon as he gets to a stopping point that he can connect to Wi-Fi. But Trey Hendrickson officially agreeing to a 1-year contract today with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's expected to be in the $30 million range, giving him a $14 million raise this year, but does continue to keep him as a free agent, at least on paper, for 2026. Let's talk about the other news of the day just real quick, Andrew. I don't think there was a whole lot of shocking news per se, but the Bengals did make some roster moves ahead of tomorrow's deadline. For those of you that didn't see, McTelvin Ajim, Nate Brooks, Cole Burgess, Quali Conley, Shaquan Loyal, Rashad Owens, Andrew Rame, Lance Robinson, Andrew Stuber, Peyton Thorne, and Craig Young were all waived. They also released veteran defensive tackle Taven Bryan, and that was really the story of release day so far. Obviously, still many, many cuts to be made, but the biggest news, of course, is Taven Bryan being waived today, and many thought that maybe he had done enough this camp to make the team. But what are your thoughts on Taven Bryan and the overall waves that happened today?
Yeah, I think that's really the only surprising one when you look at those names. And Bryan was going to be close. We knew it was going to be close with him, but at the same time, you looked at the preseason that he had. He's been in the league a long time now. I think he's been in the league now 6 years. And he looked like the type of guy that you want to have at the back end of your D tackle room. There just has to be somebody in there that they like more, probably a bit younger. Seemed like he did enough. It really did, because like you mentioned, was the highest win rate on the interior defensive line this year. in the preseason for the Bengals. And for a group that has struggled, honestly, in the past few seasons, and really since DJ Reader and BJ Hill filled up the middle, you would think that they would want to keep a veteran guy like that around, especially to try to mentor some of those younger guys in that group. Because I think that we have some guys in there that can be really solid, especially in McKinley Jackson. But you would think that they might want to keep around somebody like Taven Bryan, who, he's not gonna wow you really, but he's done enough in the league to be somewhat of a, I don't want to say established, but he has a veteran presence to him, and somebody that you would think has more value than what he's going to just put on the field.
Yeah. The other, piece of this whole conversation that a lot of people are tying to, which I don't think is accurate, but, a lot of people are pointing to his wife's videos from this weekend and seeing that maybe this is related. I don't think it's related at all. Taven Bryan's wife had an experience. She shared it on social media. She didn't badmouth anybody. She didn't knock anything. A lot of people took that video and proceeded to knock the Cincinnati Bengals. But in general, I just think she was sharing her experience. And unfortunately, Taven Bryan wasn't part of the 2025 roster at this point. So that was certainly intriguing nonetheless. But, we'll monitor that. Maybe he's a guy that they bring back later if he doesn't get picked up elsewhere. But again, the news of the day, Trey Hendrickson, 1-year contract and gets a $14 million raise and was scheduled to make $30 million this year. I think one of the things that stood out to me about this hold out, hold in, hold whatever is the way that Trey handled it of late, right? I think there's a lot that can be said the way he handled it over the last several months, but over the last couple of weeks, I felt like Trey did exactly what you'd expect of a veteran who's injured or who's going through this negotiation or anything else. He was there. He was on the field. He was engaged. And one of the things that I think is most important for this Bengals team moving forward, knowing that whether we agree or not, it doesn't feel like Trey Hendrickson is going to be a long-term part of this team. So the growth of Shamar Stewart becomes infinitely more important. And I liked what I saw out of him this preseason, but now having Trey padded up next to him and able to continue to coach him up hand in hand feels like a huge win to me. What are your thoughts on Shamar Stewart, what you saw from him this preseason, and what your expectations are for him this season and beyond?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think I was in the majority of Bengals fans when the pick came in. I wasn't the most excited about it, but what we've seen from him since he's joined the team has been pretty good. And I'm not necessarily super surprised by that because he has all the physical attributes. I mean, that was the big thing. He's a boomer bust guy. Like, that's what it seemed like. He's got every tool in the shed. It's just whether or not he's going to use them. And if he's with Trey Hendrickson, then it could get even better.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of geeking out a little bit because as you can see, Bengals just made the news official with the most ridiculous tweet I've ever seen. Maybe not, but it's I got to see this. It's just a picture of Trey with his iconic point to the sky. And all it says is, we have agreed to a revised contract with Trey Hendrickson, period. Like, there's zero, like, what is this? The social team should be drumming up excitement just as much as anybody else is trying to. There are fans that are excited and want to hear about the Trey Hendrickson news, and all you do is send out a tweet that says, we have agreed to a revised contract with Trey Hendrickson. Is that? Am I overreacting? What is this tweet?
That's it's pretty bad.
Oh man. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I expected full details from them. And, obviously Trey's got to, actually sign the contract and everything. But, that's a very interesting tweet nonetheless, in my
that
eyes.
seems par for the course.
It does. Doesn't it? Like, this is just yet another way, in my eyes, at least, of the Cincinnati Bengals saying to Trey Hendrickson, you're just another guy. Like, this entire process has just felt like them saying to Trey Hendrickson, you're just another guy. And like, literally, this is the type of tweet I would expect from them saying, like, we've agreed to a new contract with like some random third-year backup linebacker who you may or may not ever see in a game. Like, honestly, this is the type of tweet that I would expect if they like signed Khaled Adamitis to a new contract, their long snapper. Like,
I think we would get a more exciting tweet from them. People get really up for Cal, right?
They really do. Look, I'm not gonna. I'm already overreacting to the tweet, so it is what it is. But I find that personally hilarious.
Yeah,
and I can just imagine the drafts that the social team went through and sent through for approval, just to try and get the news out, only for them to say this is the tweet we're gonna go with. Like, I can't imagine the disappointment from the social team. And for those of you that don't know, Andrew works really hard on the back end with our social team. A lot of the day-to-day social media that you see from Chatterbox is managed by Andrew in combination from Nick Kirby. So we appreciate you being part of it and certainly hopping on here with me as well to chat about it. But I do want to open it up to people in the chat. If you do have questions while we wait on Reid, he texted me that he's about 20 miles in from not having a single exit. And he's trying to find somewhere where he can pull over and join us. But until he does, we'll certainly continue this show and keep blabbing on about the news. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let us know. And we'd be happy to answer it. But look, I think just going back to kind of chat about this process. And, I think realistically, you look at what Trey did in 2023, he deserved a contract extension then. He repeats it and leads the NFL in sacks in 2024. And like, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, I know that you have to get T and Jamar signed. And I want to like acknowledge the fact that this offseason they had several priorities that needed to get done, but none of them had to wait until this year. They easily could have signed T last year. They easily could have signed Jamar last year, but they waited and they played hardball and made this extend way more out than it needed to. And as we continue to hear behind the scenes things of the way the Bengals treat players, treat their families, treat their alumni, it just unfortunately feels like par for the course at this point. And I think as a Cincinnati Bengals fan, personally, taking off my Chatterbox hat, taking off everything else, my biggest concern, frustration is that for as long as Mike Brown remains in control of this team and Katie Blackburn and everybody else, this is just going to be who we are. And I don't necessarily see a light at the end of the tunnel for changing how we manage these situations.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it feels like the Bengals front office, it's they're not rewarding players, if that makes sense. It almost feels like in baseball when you go through the arbitration process, it's like they're figuring out ways to give people less and less money. And I understand from the business side of things, how that works. Like you can't be giving out as much money as these guys want. And I understand the negotiating, but wouldn't you to me, it just feels like you want to reward your players who are playing well, and keep them happy and make them want to be in Cincinnati. And every time that one of these contract extensions comes up, one of these negotiations, it feels like this. It feels like, oh man, like we just want to make sure we're getting the cheapest dollar amount out of this player. And, they go into these things and make them feel undervalued. And that's just a bad way to do business. And you can't continue to do that. And until they move on from that, the criticisms of the front office are going to continue to be fair. There's nothing you can say or do about it, because every year they continually do the same sort of thing where they wait until the last minute. They try to get you at the very, lowest dollar that you'll play for. I think thankfully there's guys that like Cincinnati. I think Joe being here helps a ton with getting guys like Jamar and T and Trey to want to stay, because they know what this team is capable of. But if the team quality wasn't where it was, and we're not talking about, a 12-5 team or a 13-4 team, we're talking about a 9-8 team here. If the team quality was any worse, would they really be sticking around for the dollar? Like Trey Hendrickson, $30 million, would he really be sticking around for that? I don't know. It's tough to say. And I think that maybe Jamar and T on the open market might have got a little bit more. I know that they signed these massive contracts and whatnot, which was like the first time that it really felt like they had spent. But it just feels like when we go through these negotiations, we're just making these guys feel as though we don't value them.
Yeah. Again, I can't imagine there's a whole lot just joining, but for those just joining, Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals agreed to a new 1-year contract, estimated to be around $30 million is the reports. But I did see one, Diana Russini just about 35 minutes ago tweeted out a report, I guess, of let me see if I can share it, see if I'm smart like Nick. Here we go. So Diana Russini tweeted out that the Bengals originally offered a 3-year, $95 million deal to Trey Hendrickson, but did not include any guaranteed money in the second year. Hendrickson and the Bengals obviously then were able to reach an agreement about half an hour ago. At this point, it's about an hour ago on this rework deal that will end his hold in and see Hendrickson participate in practice tomorrow with the Cincinnati teammates. So what you're telling me is, which I think we kind of already knew, but just to go over it, Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, Bengals offered $31.3 million a year, if my math is correct. I'm sure it's not, but $31 to $32 million a year, but only guaranteed 1 year of that contract. Instead, Trey takes a reduced 1-year salary of $30 million with no guaranteed second year. Who wins?
I don't think anyone. I mean, I'll tell you, the front office thinks that they've won. Probably. They probably think that they have because they save money on in the future years and whatnot. But
yeah,
the fans don't trade. I don't think Trey does.
Yeah. All right. Well,
the 2025 Bengals are going to be better because of this. But aside from that, that's weird.
Yeah. Interesting for sure. On that note, let's bring in another opinion to the show. Rita Roo joining us live from the corner of a McDonald's in the middle of nowhere. What's going on, Reid? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, middle of nowhere is a bad way to describe 30 minutes outside of Davenport, Iowa. But it's I'm not quite sure where I'm at, but I do know I'm about 30 minutes outside of Davenport, Iowa, and I don't know how much you guys have dived into this or what the general feeling is about this whole Trey Hendrickson news, but I guess my question is, as I hop on here, is what did the Bengals gain from this? Right? Is that a fair question? Like I'm like catch me up on where we're at.
I think that's a similar conversation to what we were just having. So, and we'll get your take on all of this too. So, essentially, what you went from is the Bengals had a 1-year deal with Trey Hendrickson that would have paid him $16 to $18 million this year, whatever that number was. But Trey wasn't going to play for that. The Bengals weren't ready to commit to Trey beyond that. And so the Bengals decide, well, I'd rather pay him more this year, have him for this year, and have zero risk beyond this year and be able to control what we do beyond this year versus what Trey wanted, which is long-term security, right? So
right.
What did you hear the Diana Russini report that I just shared?
No.
Okay, so I'll share it again just so that you can see. Here's a report. The Bengals originally offered Trey a 3-year, $95 million contract, but only guaranteed year one money, right? So if you're Trey and the offer is 3 years, $95 million, but only the first year is guaranteed, or 1 year, $30 million, and then you either get guaranteed money from being tagged in 2026 or the freedom to go negotiate your own contract in 2026. I guess the question becomes, which would you rather have? But I don't know if he really felt like he was going to get more than a 1-year guarantee from the Bengals. And maybe this is just hey, I'm going to play this year. I'm going to show out and I'm literally leaving Cincinnati no matter what happens.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in Trey Hendrickson's camp, this is outside of getting a 3-year, 4-year deal. This is probably best case scenario, because even with a 3-year, $95 million contract like Diana Russini reported was offered, if only the first year was guaranteed, then pretty much Trey Hendrickson, if he plays this year and plays well, he's going to get paid more than that anyways. Like the only way in which he loses out on anything is if he has a tragic injury this year, which even then, like, he wouldn't have gotten any money. So, like, it's almost the best case scenario. But I asked you the question, what did the Bengals gain from this? And what your answer was is that Trey Hendrickson is going to play. And if you believed that he wasn't going to play under his current contract, then yes, then something was gained. But I'm under the camp, and I work under precedent here, to where only one player in the history of the National Football League has held out for an entire year and has missed out on every single game check that came through. And it didn't work out for him. So all these players that say they held out, they don't do it. It's literally only happened once out of the hundreds and hundreds of players that have threatened him. So I worked under the precedent that there was never a scenario in which Trey Hendrickson missed an entire year. Might have missed a game, might have missed 2 games, but by week 3, more than likely he's going to be like, all right, I need that $1 million check that's supposed to come through here, but supposed to hit the direct deposit account on Monday. The Bengals essentially gained nothing. And I just don't understand what they think they gained, because I worked under the assumption that he was going to play, because that's what's always happened in the National Football League. And now we're just paying someone more. Listen, I'm in Davenport, Iowa right now. And my truck payment, basically I have 1 year left to pay on my truck payment back home. This deal, and this is the best analogy I can come up with, is that the bank called and they said, hey, you've gotten a lot of good miles out of your truck. It's been a pretty sturdy truck, which I have. I've got a good deal on that thing. They call and they say, hey, your payment's gone up double for this last year. That's how I see this Trey Hendrickson thing, because I think they've gained nothing. I think that he was always going to play. So we're essentially just paying more for an inevitability. And you can say maybe we get 2 weeks of practice. He's going to be ready for week 1 instead of being ready for week 3. I don't know what you value a day of practice led by Zach Taylor, but I don't value it at about $1 million, which is about 16 practices is what he's going to get until week 1. So I guess I just am working under the thing is I don't get – this is almost the worst case scenario, because I didn't believe in a scenario in which he doesn't play. So this is the worst case scenario for me.
So here's my question for you, Reid. And I think that this is partly driven by the experience with T. Higgins, right? Is that the Bengals could have and should have extended T. Higgins well before they ended up doing it.
Right.
They didn't do that. They used the franchise tag to basically kick the can down the road. Now, to me, this is a similar situation because the Bengals have the same opportunity, and it's being reported out there now by Jordan Schultz that the Bengals did not give a no tag clause to Trey Hendrickson as part of this 1-year deal. So we are nearly guaranteed that the Bengals will turn around and tag Trey Hendrickson next year and go through this exact same process again. And at that point, you're going to have the opportunity to review what he does in 2025 to determine what you want to do moving forward. But if you didn't want to pay him because you were worried about a cliff at the age of 30 this year, you're probably not going to want to pay him next year anyway. So are you really accomplishing anything?
Nothing. And me and Andrew's brains were molded by the great professors at Bluffton University. So they don't always fire on high synapses here. So I guess I cannot do another year of this. And that seems like where we're headed.
Yeah.
Is if we kept that franchise tag, which, by the way, he'd get paid pretty handsomely under a franchise tag. Like,
I'm seeing the number is like only 26.5 million though.
Oh, maybe not then. I thought it was a little higher.
I thought it was higher because when I look at it, the top contracts average out to be like in the mid 30s, but
correct.
I guess based on how you work different signing bonuses and everything else, it's actually 26.5.
I was going to say a bunch of those contracts probably don't hit their big money yet.
Yep.
So like in 2 years, it might be in the mid 30s, but right now it'd be mid. Okay. So it's not as high as I was going to say because there's a world.
But he's not going to play for 26.5 either.
Correct. There was a world in which he played for 35 where he'd be like, oh, sure. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, he'd probably want more money guaranteed, but so they're.
Corey puts a good point in the chat that the franchise tag is the average of the top 5 or 120% more than what you made the previous year. So even though the averages are in the 26.5 million range, and what is being reported online, I just want to be completely honest. I'm no NFL salary cap expert or anything. People online are all using the 26.5 million number, but Corey brings up a good
36
point.
Then. That'd be 36.
It'd be
right?
36.
Yeah, that's pretty. He might play under that. I mean, he'd probably want more money guaranteed, but he might have no qualms with making that kind of money. I'm sure next year he'd really want to hit a four-year guarantee. But at the end of the day, I guess I didn't see this. We've talked about this Trey Hendrickson stuff for 3 years now. And it seems like we're going to talk about it another year. But I never saw a scenario in which it's just a 1-year deal for twice the money that we're paying. Because I didn't see the value from the organization in that, a team that pretty clearly stands fast on its values of how it operates and controls the team. So that brings me into another point. I'm sorry I'm rambling here. It must be the fumes here in Davenport, Iowa, from all the farmland, all the pesticides.
No free ads, but I think anybody watching this stream right now knows exactly where you're sitting.
But I guess where I'm at with this, with the Bengals, and another part that I'm frustrated, it's pretty well documented across the league how the Bengals operate. I think last time I was on a show with you, Craig, I mentioned how Jay Morrison always goes, Mike Brown doesn't blink. But it's becoming more evident that he's not only blinking, he's got a problem with him. Like he just keep blinking. So the Bengals are a cheap franchise. They'll always be that way until they get new ownership. That's just who we are. And it sucks, but that's just who we are. If we're going to be that, I at least want to be kind of MFers about it, right? Like if we're going to do that, if we're going to be that cheap, let's be hard-hearted businessmen about it too. To where we're like, hey, we are going to stand. This is what we're going to pay you. You can take it or you can leave it. You can take it or you leave it. This is bending over backwards and giving a player just double the money just because you thought that he really wasn't going to sit out, even though that's literally only happened in the National Football League one time in the history of the sport. So I think it sends a bad message to where, like, okay, Mike Brown does blink. You can bully him to make concessions that won't even benefit his organization. Because like you can say, oh, at least we get Trey Hendrickson for 4 years. No, we don't even get that. We get him for 1 year for double the price. I guess I just didn't. I never saw this, and it's frustrating because I don't understand what we gain out of this.
Yeah, first of all, I think I never saw an option where the 1 year was going to happen. I thought it was either multi-year contract extension or we were going to trade him. And so I'm in the same boat with you on that. But the only thing that I can think of is, and it doesn't seem like this, I'm not suggesting this because Trey seems like a pro's pro, but is there a possibility that they think that they get a different Trey Hendrickson, a more motivated Trey Hendrickson if he's playing for more money? Like, is that even a possibility?
Or if he's in a contract year yet again?
There's two ways you can look at this. And you're right, because that comes out a bunch. He's going to be more motivated because he understands that he's going to be it's a contract year. Do we know if this money's guaranteed, all $30 million?
I would have to imagine it is, but I don't know for sure.
Correct. If I'm Trey Hendrickson and my knee's not feeling right and the money's guaranteed, knowing that this is a contract year and knowing that you're already pretty much a proven commodity, if my knee's tweaked up a little bit, I might not play. I listen, if I think that there's $35 million on the table for the foreseeable future, because if he goes to the open market, he will get paid $35 million guaranteed for at least 3 years or something along those lines. Like he'll make $100 million. And I know that it's kind of a damning thing to say about a player, but that's what I would do if I knew that was coming up. To where, this knee, it's banged up. I can play on it, and I could probably play at a pretty high level. But why would I, knowing that if I hurt this thing, I tear it or have some catastrophic injury, I just lost myself $70 million, $100 million, whatever it is, because that's how I think about this. So you can say that he might be more motivated in a contract year. That seems to me to be an optimistic spin over what I would assume, which is, hey, he's going to be a little more cautious of his body, knowing that the money's guaranteed, knowing that he can sit on the sideline and still get paid the same.
Yeah, and any type of injury he sustains this year, if he was to hit the open market, even if he's out 2 weeks at his age, any type of injury is money off of the table for him. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be a major injury. But if he is out with a ankle sprain, anything at all that's going to hurt his production or potentially hurt him in a physical way, and we talked about it, like 30 is not the end all be all for especially edge rushers, but teams are much less willing to give a guy that type of contract if they play 10 games versus 17 or 12 games versus 15. So, even if it's just a couple of weeks, it would make a difference.
I think even if he plays 12 weeks or something like that, there will be a team that thinks that they're a playoff team that someone will pony up money. Someone will pay him a pretty high rate because it's the second most important position on the field, third most important position on the field. And I see Craig laughing. I can't see the chat.
I'm Jay Tinzel, my favorite super chatter of all. No offense to anybody else on the regular Nutcutter Nation, of course, but I can't read it because this is just what he does. He super chats inappropriate things that I can't say, but let's just say that he's excited about the Trey Hendrickson deal and that he's glad that it got done. So Jay Tinzel, as always, I appreciate you. I unfortunately am well versed in your ways, so I'm not going to read that. But nonetheless, I appreciate you. Trace would probably read it.
Let me ask a question for you guys. Does this spell out the future plans for the Bengals? Do you think? Do you think this says like, all right, we'll do Trey. We'll have Trey for another year, and then we really need to hit on these young guys, whether it be Myles Murphy, whether it be Shamar Stewart. Do you think that's them just saying we're going to have these young guys play, and Trey's going to be the stopgap for a year? Because with the availability to franchise tag, I don't even know if that's a positive spin on this. You can say that this gets you to another year of just letting the young guys take over. Someone's got to blossom out of this. But I guess I don't even see how it forecasts what the Bengals are organizationally trying to do with their defense.
Well, I mean, you drafted, I think, what many of us presume to be Trey Hendrickson's heir apparent, right? And Shamar Stewart. And it at least gives you a year to evaluate how that works out. I mean, he's going to get a ton of reps opposite Trey and should benefit extremely from those opportunities. And so, you know, if he doesn't take advantage of those, maybe it changes your opinion of him. But you took him at 17 overall. You have to believe that he's the future. But what else are you going to get? And then the other piece of it is that you have $60 million in cap space for 2026. Do you think that you can replace a 31-year-old Trey Hendrickson with a more affordable, younger talent and get – now, I'm not saying this as me. I'm saying this as a Bengals. But do you think that you can replace what you would get out of a 31-year-old Trey with a younger 26 to 28-year-old D-end?
Well, when does a 26, 27-year-old proven D-end make the market?
Well, I think that's the question. Do you expect Trey to be a prime 26 to 28-year-old pass rusher like a Max Crosby, like some of these other guys who are earning $35 million a year contracts? Or do you think that a 31-year-old Trey that you would have to pay $30+ million to be on your team in the production that you would expect out of a 31-year-old Trey Hendrickson can be replicated by a non-prime 26 to 28-year-old D-end? We talked a lot about Yannick Ngakoue last year. Like, doesn't have to be a top tier guy, but can you replace a 31-year-old's production with somebody else who isn't necessarily prime Trey?
Right. Yeah. You're not. In short, you find the same problem with tackles and quarterbacks because it's such a premier position that, to be honest, getting guys that are going to drastically improve your team. And this is understanding that we got Trey Hendrickson in free agency a few years ago. Like this is a guy, but at the time he was thought of as a lower end. Like the gripe was that he was a Cam Jordan merchant, right? He was just picking up what Cam Jordan was leaving out on the table. But when it comes to these premier positions, you're never going to get a franchise-changing guy, and it happens very rarely. Like Trey is the one guy that I can think of off the top of my head without going around and thinking about all the other leagues that you're not going to get a top-tier talent anyway. Like you can get some help, but it's just not going to be the same. So, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it seems like we're just mortgaging this problem down the line.
Does this signing change your opinion of this Bengals offseason at all?
Yes, because I think it made it worse. I hate this so much. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I was going to say positive or negatively. I mean, I'm not saying that it had to be a positive way. Yeah,
and I didn't look at the offseason as a success or roaring. I thought it was pretty bleh. I thought, I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was good. I just thought it was bleh. And I think this swayed my opinion towards, and I'm the positive guy, right? Like I'm the guy who comes in here and tells you, I think we'll still have a Super Bowl window. I think everything's going to be hunky dory, but I'm the one who's having to say this because I don't understand what we gained.
Yeah.
What about you? Go ahead.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I don't necessarily think that this doesn't move the needle at all in terms of the offseason, how I grade it. It's weird because, they probably, if we're being honest, they probably weren't going to spend this money that they're going to give Trey. They might go get Risner or some guard out there. But they probably weren't going to spend. How much, Craig, did you say that they had in cap space before the signing?
30 million.
30 million. Were they going to spend 30 million?
Not a chance.
Yeah. So does it really make any difference? Honestly, to this team, the only difference is they're spending more money. It's basically the same team running out on the field. And I honestly don't care that they spent more money. So it doesn't make any difference to me. Is it a smart move? No, I don't think it's a a smart move necessarily, but it's not a move that champion front offices make.
Here's what I would hold on, Reid. Here's one thing I think that we have to take into consideration is that I do believe that the Bengals have been conservative in their approach to the last couple months or couple weeks because of the unknown of the Trey Hendrickson deal and how much money they were going to have to put up front. Now that this is done, it may open them up to say, okay, now we can get a Dalton Reisner deal done at $2.5 to $3 million like it's going to take, rather than the 1.5 that we offered him, or some other player, right? But as we sit today, the only outside player that you brought in is Oren Burks and Taven Bryan, who got waived today. So, like, realistically, your offseason is only extensions. And so unless this opens up your freedom to actually go out and make some moves, I'm in the same boat as Reid, where it doesn't really move the needle for me if it doesn't mean that they're going to go do something else. There's so many situations where we've talked about the Reds and other teams and how they have to make certain moves before they feel comfortable proceeding with the big move that, we want them to make. And it does beg the question of, does this open them up now that they have this financial confirmation of what it's going to take for Trey to be able to go out and now say, okay, we have $16 million left of the salary cap. Let's go spend X of it on free agents or waiver wire pickups or whatever.
That's something I didn't consider. And that's actually a pretty good thought, because they probably, when you work at a budget oriented organization like the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm sure that was hovering over their head. Is like, I don't know what's going to happen with Trey. We've got this deal out on the table that's $35 or $33 million a year or whatever it was for
right.
3 years. Okay, so I guess it's the analogy, because I like to work in analogies, is your family is looking at the budget and you're like, we really got to get this couch. And you just keep kicking down the road and like, I don't know if we can book our vacation yet because we got to get this couch. And then you finally buy the couch, like, all right, now we can start looking. Now we can start booking this vacation because we've officially got that out. We don't have to worry about that anymore. I like that. That is a positive spin. So if I was near a ledge, I don't think there's any ledges here in Davenport, Iowa. It seems pretty flat. If that was near a ledge, you backed me off it a little bit to at least let them, improve the team here in the next 2 weeks. Okay.
Sure. But if they do nothing in the next 2 weeks, then we can certainly revisit this and be like, what was the holdup?
I'm going to do my best to not revisit this anymore, because it's been going on for I think ever since Trey Hendrickson walked out of Mike Brown's office and signed the extension a couple years ago, this has been the main point of conversation ever since then. So it's been about 3 years of this going on, and it's going to continue. That's such is life. At least they're keeping us, not even keeping us on our toes. I guess we're just standing flat-footed in Bengal land, waiting for the next Trey Hendrickson news.
I guess here's what I would, as we, I think, probably start to think about wrapping this up, is for the last couple weeks, I've been excited and waiting with bated breath to be able to hop on here and announce a 3-year Trey Hendrickson deal and be able to be like excited. And whether it's because I had built up this hype or otherwise, at the end of the day, this feels like a letdown. And whether that's over time, I'm going to view this as a positive or negative. I guess I'll take some time and really think through this. A lot of this is on the fly, but when you get news that you guys, the Bengals, not you two, but the Bengals were in agreement on the number of years and on the amount of money per year, but they wouldn't guarantee a second year, felt like such a minute detail that they could get through and find a way to get this deal done, to now have the official announcement be that he signed a new 1-year contract. And Reid, I don't know if you saw the official tweet from the Bengals or not, but like, they did nothing to drum up my excitement myself. Right. So like, it feels like my energy is matching the Bengals energy, and for better or for worse.
Yeah. I guess I was pretty fired up. I was talking with Casey on the phone before I got on here. He was saying this was best case scenario, because he was working under the assumption, A, that Trey wasn't going to play, and B, that he didn't want to sign Trey to an extension. So this would have been the best case scenario in those two worlds. But as you know, I was never working under the assumption that Trey Hendrickson was not going to play for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. So I've got nothing. I've got nothing out of this. I guess the only thing I can tell you is that it will all be forgotten, as things do typically once the season gets rolling. And if he plays in the first 2 weeks and has 3 to 4 sacks in those first 2 weeks, we forget all about this because he's just a Bengal now, and there's more important things to worry about in season than the budget sheet. So I guess that's the good news is you can stop working out of speculation and stop working out of what's going to happen with Trey, what's going to happen with Trey. So we know what's happened with Trey, and now we can just focus on Pigskin.
Yeah, that's I think is the best thing out of this is that you have to wait now. You get to wait 250 days before we do this all over again.
All right, I'm going to leave each of you with 2 questions that I want your input on, and then we'll go from there. First question that I'll get your answer on before I ask the second one is, how does Trey Hendrickson playing this year change the outlook of the Cincinnati Bengals for 2025? And I want you to operate under the assumption that he wouldn't have played under his previous contract. Either one of you can go first.
Andrew, I'll let you go first.
If he wasn't going to play, honestly, this team got in terms of where our defense was at, I honestly believe this team got 2 to 3 wins better if he was not going to play.
Yeah, if he wasn't going, the worst case scenario was always that he wasn't going to play, but I never went to that world. So in this hypothetical where he was not going to play, then yes, this defense got the best case scenario for it. And it got an all-pro caliber player to get after the quarterback, and for a defense that presumably they're going to be dropping back a lot. You know, the opposing team is going to be dropping back a lot because if you assume that our offense is going to be scoring a lot, that they're going to need to keep pace. They're going to need to drop back, which helps Trey Hendrickson. So, yes, this team, 2 to 3 wins better, sure, absolutely. He is he's not a top 5 defensive player in the league, but he's a top 10 in terms of game-changing player.
All right. And then my second question to you is, imagine it's August 25th of 2026, 1 year from today.
Okay.
Is Trey Hendrickson a Bengal, and is he participating with the team?
Yes. Yes, he's a Bengal. No, he's not participating with the team.
So you are operating under the assumption that he's franchise tagged and holding in.
The only way in which the Cincinnati Bengals do not franchise tag Trey Hendrickson is if he has a terrible year or has some terrible injury. If he plays anywhere near to the level that we've seen Trey Hendrickson play at since he's put on the stripes, he will be franchise tagged. They will not make an extension. They will not agree to an extension. And he will sit out. So check. I think that is by far the most likely scenario here. So we get another year of this. It's good content.
Love it. Andrew?
Yeah, he'll be a Bengal. They'll franchise tag him. It's kind of like Reid said. He's not he's gonna hold out or hold in or whatever you want to call it now. The only way that he would not be is if for some reason, because I think there's a better chance of him coming around on it than the Bengals coming around on it, he will sign a non-guaranteed contract.
If he gets 12 sacks this year, to where he's a good player, but not where he was, 11 to 12 sack range, I could see a world in which they come to grips. He's realizing, I'm becoming a 32-year-old edge rusher in this league. I need some guaranteed money, and the Bengals will go, all right, well, forget that $30 million a year contract that we were offering you a year ago. We'll do a 2-year guaranteed, but it's going to be $25 million now. And he'll go, all right. He comes to grips with his own mortality, and he's like, all right, I'll sign that just to get more money in my pocket and guarantee it. But the most likely scenario is that he plays, he gets franchise tagged, he sits out, and we do this all over.
Yep.
Okay. Any final thoughts from either of you?
Davenport, Iowa is lovely. You should visit it. Vacation spot for sure. It's a sleeper.
I look forward to my next visit to Davenport. All right, everybody. Once again, Trey Hendrickson, new 1-year deal with the Cincinnati Bengals, set to pay him $30 million, a $14 million raise from what he was scheduled to make, but does make him a free agent after this season. Appreciate you all tuning in. For Andrew Collinsworth and Reid Maus, this has been Chatterbox Bengals. Make sure you tune in later tonight in the 9th inning for Chatterbox Reds. Nick and Trace will be live to take you through the end of that one and break it all down afterwards. And if you didn't see on social media earlier today, September 8th, mark your calendars. No details released, but return of Off the Bench. Who's hosting? We'll see.